Welcome back to the Keller Report. House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa has uncovered another Obamacare scandal, so-called Navigators. They've never been trained, no background checks, number of anecdotes concerning identity theft. HHS apparently hasn't done a thing about it, so I want to know what's up with this. Where are we going? And as we approach the first major Obamacare deadline, we're still nowhere near the administration's goals. Apparently about 500,000 people have now signed up using state and federal exchanges. But nearly 5 million people have lost their insurance altogether, and of those who have signed up, so many of them are Medicaid people, leading people to suggest the real name of this should be Obamacare. Anyway, let's talk. We have Democratic strategist Carrie Woddford, Kurt Bardella, former senior advisor to the House Oversight Committee, and Avik Roy, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Kurt, let me go to you because this Navigator story, it's not brand new, but it's officially uncovered now by the investigation committee. Who are these people? They're not trained. They don't have any credentials. A lot of people said, as you know, James O'Keefe and others have said, these guys are just Obama election operatives who are trying to get information for the next Democratic campaign. Who are these people?
Well, I think, Larry, that's the question that everyone in America should be asking themselves right now. How comfortable are you giving your personal and private information, your Social Security number, your tax information, your income information? How comfortable are you giving it to people who aren't qualified experts, who aren't health insurance experts, who aren't health care experts, people who may have had 5 hours of online training, who are supposed to act as the gateway to Obamacare? These are the people that are on the front lines of implementing healthcare.gov. These are the people you're supposed to forfeit your information to. Larry, would you be comfortable giving your personal information to these people? Most Americans probably aren't.
Yeah, heck no. Listen, Carrie, let me go to you on this because there's another nasty part of this. It has been reported that numerous navigators have told their clients, so to speak, to put up false information, particularly regarding income, so they can get more tax credits or more subsidies. So basically they're in the falsification mode, the lying mode. Now, that can't work.
Now, numerous would be inaccurate. This report came out in September, as you said, and the HHS has already fired the navigators who were accused of wrongdoing. So let's think about Medicare.
They just fired 5 of them, Carrie. 5 of them was the report. 5 of them. Now, this has got to be a bigger problem than 5.
No, so listen, Medicare is this important part of the fabric of how America takes care of our grandmas and our grandpas. We make sure that they have quality health insurance and keep in mind that they won't be bankrupt by doctors' bills. Now, how do they find out about Medicare? Through Navigators. Navigators has been around for decades. CMS runs it. It's the office at HHS that runs Medicare and Medicaid. And this is a system that's been around for a long time. If there are navigators who are accused of wrongdoing, they're fired. This is not a big problem. And just as today there's so much partisan politicizing of Obamacare and fear-mongering, there was fear-mongering about the beginning of Medicare. And millions of Americans have done very well with Medicare, and it's a very popular program. Right. So the same will be true about Obamacare.
Yeah,
just wait and see.
You can comment generically, but I think this whole business, look, Social Security numbers, birth dates, addresses, phone numbers, annual income, sensitive tax information. Carrie says that the navigators have been around for decades. Is that true? I never heard of them. This is new to me.
Yeah, Larry, that's not true at all.
Yes, it is.
That's not true at all.
Let me correct the record here. So there's something really important to understand, which is that shopping for insurance on the exchanges is a lot more complicated than Medicare. You qualify for Medicare when you're 65, and today you either enroll in Part A or Part B, or you enroll in Part C, but it's relatively simple. There's a default option. It's pretty straightforward. On the exchanges, the navigator, the so-called navigator, has to know a lot about your income in terms of the subsidy you qualify for. He has to know a lot about the different plans that are on offer, the bronze, the silver, the gold, the platinum, the different deductibles, the different situation in your life. So it's a lot more complicated, and there's a lot more personal and private information involved. And let me just cut to the chase here. The whole reason why these navigators, without any real background in insurance, are being utilized to do this is because the Obama administration is terrified that if they don't enroll enough people quickly enough, this law is vulnerable. repeal. So that's why they're being very unrigorous about the people who are the so-called navigators, because they want to make sure that as many people sign up as quickly as possible so that the political strength of this law is increased, and it doesn't matter if people's privacy or if people make mistakes or if people are signed up for the wrong plan or if it turns out they're not eligible for subsidies later and pay a fine from the IRS. Those are not the concerns of this administration.
Yeah, that is not fair. The people who have run Medicare are career civil servants. They've run it for decades. They run this program. They know how to hire people. They don't run this program, though.
That's the thing about CMS. CMS has publicly said in documents uncovered by the Oversight Committee that they do not have accountability measures for the navigators because they push the responsibility for oversight and accountability onto the state exchanges who have never done this before because this never existed before. There is no accountability for these navigators, and that's a glaring problem that CMS has admitted in documents, in emails, in transcribed interviews, in testimony. They have said there is no accountability measure, and they are very concerned about that.
There was the same fear-mongering when Medicare started. There were people who were trying to spread fear. Once Americans get a chance to see it, the Affordable Care Act for themselves, depoliticize it, it's just healthcare. Go on healthcare.gov. You find out you're at the subsidy you get. Most Americans are going to get help paying for their health insurance. Most Americans are going to be much better off.
Most Americans will be sticker shock at the rising cost of their premiums and their out-of-pocket costs.
And we finally get rid of those terrible rules of the road from when the insurance companies no more pre-existing conditions and lifetime limits and all the caps on coverage.
You may or may not be right about the success ultimately of Obamacare. You may or may not be right, all right? It's a forecast. Maybe you'll be right. I'm not going to rule it out. It doesn't look good, but I'm not going to rule it out. But what does bother me about this Navigator story is, in testimony among various committees, including the Investigation Oversight Committee, Darrell Iss's committee, HHS, Sebelius, the CMS people, did not deny the chaos surrounding the Navigators or the lack of training. And they said they really had virtually no management control over this group, Carrie. That's what is so concerning here.
Look, the rollout of the Affordable Care Act has been less than desired. The good news is that healthcare.gov is starting to work. Americans are starting to find out what kind of quality care they can get without pre-existing conditions and caps on coverage. Kids out of college can stay on their parents' insurance up to 26. Your mom, if she gets breast cancer and kicked off.
You're not answering my question.
Larry, let me
can you answer my question? There's been a lot of reading on this thing. And apparently the officials from the administration said, yeah, right, we don't really know who these navigators are, we don't have any management control over them, and we didn't train them. That's
let me explain something here, Larry. So there are a number of states that have been concerned about this problem, and they've passed legislation requiring that navigators have the same knowledge of the insurance market that licensed insurance brokers have. They have to pass an exam to understand basics about income, about subsidies, about premiums and deductibles and networks and things like that, so they can actually help people. And the Obama administration has objected to these measures because they actually actively don't want the navigators to have that basic knowledge because, again, their only concern is political. It's to enroll as many people as possible and correct the mistakes, quote unquote, later on, because they're worried about the vulnerability of this law. They're not worried actually if there's some eggs broken along the way in terms of people getting fined by the IRS. Right. And it is really a shame.
This has become so partisan and political. Just if people are worried about navigators, go by yourself. Go to the healthcare.gov alone, and you can find your own health insurance.
Have written the administration asking for help, asking for.
My understanding is a whole lot of people have gone to the website without much luck. But we'll have more discussions about this.
December 2nd, just the first 2 days of December, they had as many enrollments as the month of October. So it's picking up speed.
Which is paltry to begin with.
What I would call off a low base. But Carrie Woddford, we appreciate your efforts at defense.
Thank you.
Kurt Bardella, thank you very much. Avik Roy, as always, thank you. Up next on Kudlow, the Dow rallies 129 points today. It's ahead of this week's Fed meeting. Our stocks falling in love with a Fed taper. Well, that might